everybody. My name is Tosin Adewumi, and I'm from Nigeria, but I live in Australia. I've lived here for the last 12 years, and personally, I am an author, IT consultant, as well as a musician. So these are the three things I do with my life. I write, I make music, and I help businesses grow. And I'm so excited to be on this show today. So thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Okay. How do your name? It's Tosin.
Tosin.
Tosin. Am I saying it well? Am I pronouncing it
Yeah,
well?
yeah, yeah. It's
Tosin.
Tosin. Yeah,
Does
yeah.
it? Is there a meaning? Is there a meaning to it? Does it mean something?
It does have a meaning. Actually, Tosin is like it's the short form of the name. The full name, which is a traditional Christian name in the Nigerian part where I come from, is Oluwa Tosin, which means the Lord is worthy of praise, you could say. So it's a very mouthful uh,
Yeah.
meaning,
Yeah.
but it is very traditional Christian. You find it a lot. It's a very common name in Nigeria as well, in the southern part of Nigeria.
It's. I think it's a heavy name to carry.
It is absolutely, yeah. It reminds you. It's like names are very important. They kind of like they form part of your identity as well, and it reminds you of things that are unique to you. It is not an accident that that name has something to do with, you could say, music in some way, and here I am doing musical stuff. So I didn't plan any of that, but I guess in some way we do carry our names, we do express our name through the things that we do, or the person people will become in the process of our lives, so that's important as well.
All right, and that's great. And you wrote a book titled "Passion Reveals Purpose," right?
Yeah, that was my first book, Passion Reveals Purpose, which is more like, for me, it was more exploratory, like book to kind of like share the things that I've learned personally from that angle of finding and living your purpose. So it's more like, it's mostly about personal experiences, but I try to relate that to, how other people can benefit from that. So that's the first book. The follow-up book, which is The Purpose Finder, is actually more practical and more tailored for people to actually go through a journey where you can learn about yourself, learn about what you're good at, learn about how to implement those things, and how to, find work that will support that, in the process. So yeah, there's more detail in that second book.
All right, great. I wrote on the same topic. It's purpose
Yep.
driven. The meaning of life is found in the purpose to live. And do you think there is evidence to support the claim that an individual's mindset or an individual's belief system, and maybe talk about traditional Christianity, or the way they interpret the interpretive structure, the way they interpret the world, cannot directly affect them in all areas of their lives?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think mindset is important above everything else, like, because we cannot separate the way we think from the way we live. Like, the two are the same. If you look at the decisions that we make on a daily basis, those decisions are rooted in a mindset, in the way we think about those specific situations or contexts we may find ourselves in. So I think mindset is so important. It's important to identity, how you see yourself, who you are. It's important to the work that we choose to do, and the things that we have the capacity to even think we're capable of doing. Because if you have a mindset that is maybe not confident, and not, you don't feel like you have what it takes to achieve some things, it's going to limit you. It's going to impede you in trying to explore yourself and trying to do beyond what you think. So I think that's why it's so important to first take care of the way we think, because when we do that, it's easier to then go ahead and achieve whatever it is that we want to achieve in life. but our mind needs to like be the first thing that we take care of. So absolutely, I would say that mindset is important in that regard.
Yeah, and I will totally agree with that to the point of productivity. And I
Mm,
think if you have a business, or if you are running a country, or if you are running an organization, whatever organization it may be, in order for this business or this country or this organization to be productive, uh,
yeah,
individuals in those entities must be productive. So
right.
what, and then you are left to question what would make an individual productive, and you are left to speculate whether or not it is the way the individual interprets what they are doing and the value they put on those things. And like one of the things that you mentioned, the ability to think, and the ability to think not only on negative things, but thinking a positive light. And it was Albert Einstein who said you need to stay away from people that find a problem for every solution.
For every
And
solution,
for
yes.
every solution, and that's the mindset, or that's the frame of reference, or that's the belief system that persons who aspire to develop or aspire to be productive, they need to be very careful how they look at situations, because
Mm,
sometimes we find ourselves, and that happened to me myself, we find ourselves focusing so much on the problem. Hey, there is a problem. The problem is in our face. We spend days thinking of the problem without even starting to think about a way to solve the problem.
mm,
And if you persons give you money to solve problems, that's just how it is. Persons don't give you persons if all the time you go to your boss with a problem, the boss will
mm.
be like, that's all you bring to me, problem. But if you go to the boss with a problem and the solution, I think
That's right.
it will be more meaningful to you as an employer, if you are an employee as well.
Absolutely. I like that point you made about going with the solution because I think it's important that we have a commitment to solving our own problems to an extent before we even engage other people. It shows commitment on your part. Like if all you do, like you said, if all you do is always come with the problem and you have no insight into how it can potentially be solved, then it doesn't put you in the best position to be really. Yeah, so that's a very good point, actually.
Did you touch on mindset in your book? Because passion, when I have passion, passion reveals purpose. Did you speak
Yeah,
on,
I
on
did.
that?
There's a lot on mindset littered all over the book about the way you think, the way you see yourself, the way you look at situations, the way you look at people too. Because when you think about, I speak a lot on identity, and identity. The reason why identity is so important is because it's rooted in the way you think. You know, I think you mentioned something that Albert Einstein said. He also said something like, we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking that created them. He
Yes,
said that
yes.
too. And I really love that because what he's essentially saying is, if you have a problem and you're looking for a solution, the first thing that must change is the way you think.
Mhm.
If the way you think, at the inception of the problem hasn't changed and you're looking for a solution, you're not going to find one.
and
So
and
you
that's where
first, yeah,
and that's
if,
where I think it fits, his quote fits in as well, when he
yeah,
said, well, when he said, if you do the same thing all the time expecting a different result, that's basically madness.
that's insanity. Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly right. And I think when people understand this, it's almost like something just changed for you. Something would change for you when you understand that, because you start to then work on your mind, work on the way you think, work on how you process information and how you see yourself. Because it's impossible for you to realize something that you can't even you know, imagine or conceptualize in your head, you
And
know.
it goes without saying that it's difficult to solve something that you don't know that needs to be solved. If you don't know it
Sure.
needs to be solved, how do you solve it? And there are a lot of things that we don't know that we don't know, and
That's right.
how do we investigate those things? And something it's a fascinating idea that I find that really has me thinking. Um,
Mhm.
there are four. I read a lot of Carl Jung, one of his books, Analytical Psychology, and he was saying that there basically our foundation is just an idea. Our foundation is consciousness, and consciousness. There are four functions to consciousness. There's feeling, there is sensation, there is intuition, and there is thinking. And the highest function of the consciousness is thinking, the
Right.
ability to think critically, the ability to think rationally, the ability to take in many variables into consideration when you are thinking and not just looking at something black and white. And that's where creative endeavors come into play. That's where imagination comes into play. That's where you go
Right.
into the future, you build something with your mind, and you come back and you walk the path to making that thing a reality.
That's right.
That's one. And my question to you now is, what can you tell me the three of the best books that you have read so far? You sound like
Oh, ooh, that's a really tough one. Um, I used to read I used to read a lot from Miles Monroe. Miles Monroe wrote a lot on purpose and vision and all that stuff. I read so many of his books, but personally, I would say the number one book for me is Dale Carnegie, like the road how to make friends, how to win friends and influence people. I think that's the one. Yeah, that's like top one for me because I love that book. It speaks a lot about interpersonal relationships and how to be a personable, individual, which is very important. Which is you have to interact with people, you have to understand people. It helps you understand yourself as well. And then on the other end, this is a really tough one. I'm gonna have to choose between very tough options. Let's see. Another book that I really like is a book called The Mastery. I'm not sure if you've read it.
mastery.
Yeah,
Who's the author?
it's Robert Greene.
Oh, Robert Greene. The only book
Yeah,
I have two. I think I have one book on Robert Greene, The 48 Laws of Power.
yeah. He wrote another one called The Mastery, and it's all about strategies, and it's a lot to do with mindset as well, and psychological effect of how we think. Which is a very good book. It uses stories of war and stories of political stories and things like that to explain the concept. That's another book that I really really enjoyed reading. And third one, this is a really tough one. I'll probably say I've read there's a book by what's his name, Napoleon Hill. Um, you know what I'm talking about.
Think
His
and Grow
title
Rich.
is Think and Grow Rich. Yeah, that's a book that is so good. For me, it is so good. I mean, there's so many principles all over the book that isn't just about money that can be transferred into other things as well. So I think that particular book is great in that regard. Yeah. So I'll probably say those are like the three top books for me. Yeah, and another book that I really love reading, I've read it like 5 times, is The 1 Minute Manager. I'm not sure if you've read that. It's a really tiny book, but it talks about management and talks about how to work in a team environment and how to make people productive and how to encourage productivity, encourage commitment. It's a very good book if you have a small team that you work with, or if you're like a manager and you have people under you. uh, the principles are just amazing again. So yeah, those are the books that I can think of top of my head right now.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I interact with Dale Carnegie, How
yeah,
to Win Friends and Influence People. That's an
yeah,
amazing book. That's in my top
it is.
five. That's in my
Yeah,
top five. Don't condemn. Don't criticize. don't
That's right.
complain. Human, like I love. I've read it like 3 times. I
Yeah.
still go back to it there and there. Um, Think and Grow Rich. I think I read it like 3 times as well. I still go
Yeah.
back into it off and on. And Mastery. I think I will have to get Mastery. I think I
Yeah,
will
you
have
need to check that one out. It's a really good book. Yeah.
I think I'll have to get Mastery. It
Yeah.
sounds good. So yeah, I like the way I interact with you and the content that you create on Instagram. And anyone listening, you could check out his Instagram page. Purpose reveals, passion reveals purpose. He has wonderful content and interacting with your content. I could see that we have some books in common.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. That's
So in your
good.
personal experience, and you could use secondary sources as well, or secondary sources, would you speak positively about having a valuable aim? And do you see merit in having an aim that is valuable, an aim that you really want to achieve as a human being or as an individual?
I think it's very important. Like, it's almost impossible to live. It's impossible to live a life that is focused and directed if you don't have an aim. If you have something that you're aiming at. Personally, I believe it's all about direction. And in my book, I wrote about this. Um, you know, Direction determines destiny. I call that the 3Ds. Direction, destiny, and it's determined by decision. So a lot of people worry about where they're going to end up, but I think what we should worry mostly about is the decisions we're making today and where those decisions are leading us to. So again, speaking of aim, if you don't have a clear aim in life or for your work, it's hard to have a very strategic decision making, ability, or like, habit in a way. So it's important to first decide, okay, this is where I want to go, and then work your way back and say, okay, how am I going to get there? What's going to cost me to get? What decisions do I have to make? Who do I have to talk to? What do I need to learn? You know, uh, I like to think about it in terms of 4 different stages, actually, which I put in my book. And those different stages are like, you know, first thing is who am I? Like, who do I want to become? In achieving this aim that I've set for myself. Who am I going to become at the end of it? And then you got to think about which way do I have to go to get to that point or to achieve that aim that I've set for myself. Because sometimes we do things that are completely opposite to what we want. You take a job that doesn't lead you in the direction you want to go, or you get in a relationship with someone that doesn't have the same values as you, and we wonder why we struggle in the process of trying to achieve those things, because we create a conflict for ourselves. So this is why it's so important. After determining what your aim is, you got to determine the direction you have to go to get there. It's like traveling. If you want to go up north, you don't start by driving south. You drive up north. It's very logical, but I don't think we think about it enough in life, and that's why it's so important. And the third thing I think is meaning. Like, when I say meaning, whatever it is that you're trying to do, what is the purpose of that thing, externally? Does What meaning does it add to your world or the people around you?
Yeah,
you
and
know
that's exactly that's the exact idea that I was trying to bring out in my book as well, because
yeah,
it's titled Purpose Driven. The meaning of life is found in the purpose to
yeah,
live. Because investigating human nature, you will see that we are basically meaning making machines. We
that's
are
right.
meaning making machines. We place meaning on everything to understand it. If things don't have meaning, we will not understand it. But that's what words are, fundamentally speaking. Words
Yeah,
take the unknown and it puts meaning onto the unknown so that we can represent it in our minds, so that we can interact with it. If it doesn't have
that's
a
right.
meaning, if it doesn't have a name, there's no way that we can interact with it. It's basically scary. It's basically the unknown. So we are meaning making machines. We make meaning out of, we try to find meaning in all walks of life. We always ask
Yep.
ourselves, what does that mean? Or
Yeah.
what do you mean when you say that?
What do you mean
But
by
then
that? Yeah.
but then we will never try to specify the meaning of our lives. And one of the greatest books that I've read, Viktor Frankl, the title,
Oh, the meaning of life.
yeah, Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl,
Yeah.
when he had that experience in Auschwitz. And one of the things that he said, and I'm always going to quote that, I can never forget that statement. And that statement resonates deep within my soul. He said, between stimulus and response, there's a space. In that space is our ability to choose our response. With our response comes our freedom and our power. And
That's right.
when you were speaking about if you want to go north and you're going to drive south, it brought me back to the ideas of Carl Rogers. He was a clinical psychologist, and his idea is that human beings can be either congruent or incongruent. Congruent
Mm.
meaning that your ideal self, who you really are, you are not aligned with that person in your mind. Like you battle
Mm.
in between reality and illusion. So when you battle between those two fields, reality and illusion, you have to now bring yourself to understanding who you really are. What is it that you really want to do in life?
Mm.
What your surroundings is perpetuating? What are you perpetuating on your surroundings? And some of the reasons why persons tend to not flush themselves out philosophically and have a valuable aim or have any type of aim, because having a valuable aim is something that is it's not difficult, but it takes time, because
Yeah.
value is found in doing things that are beneficial to you, beneficial to your family, beneficial to society, beneficial to your culture.
That's right.
It's living in a way that you say being is good, and you are going to do the best that you can do to make being better. You take up a mission with your life to make sure that when you live here, you did something that was valuable to being itself, and you're not going to live like being is the worst possible thing that could happen to you, and that's a valuable aim. But just and it's difficult to flush
Mm-hmm.
that deep. It's deep to flush that out. But to have an aim, persons afraid to formulate an aim or to have an aim, because when you have an aim, it automatically becomes the judge, and we're afraid of that judge. So if you know what you're going to do, if you say, okay, I want to be this person, and then it
Mm.
comes with making sacrifices, we are afraid of sacrifices. We live in a lot of us. We live in hidden. We live for hedonistic pleasures, the will to pleasure, as Sigmund Freud have it, the will to pleasure. We are moved by the will to pleasure. So in order for us to attain that aim that we have made for ourselves, we need now to sacrifice. We need to sacrifice the pleasures of the current moment so that we can achieve the aim in the future. We need to bargain with the future. And it's
Mm.
very difficult for us to do that. And that's what I was trying to bring out in my book. To say, hey, uh, we are human beings and we have the ability to bargain with the future. We,
Yeah.
we can sacrifice some things that we do now, and then we can go down in the future. Because animals are not learned to do that. Animals can't do that. Animals just eat a mouthful and they just go and kill something else. The
Yeah.
human beings,
Yeah.
we learn to save things for later. We learn
Mm-hmm.
to bargain, to sacrifice this current moment and to go down in the future and achieve something. But that thing that we have placed down the line, it then becomes a judge. And we are afraid of judgment. We are afraid to be judged. So we just don't make an aim at all. So if I don't
Mm.
have an aim, I don't fail. I don't know if I fail if I don't have an aim. And that's one of the things
That's right.
that I'm just trying to say. It's better to know that you're failing than to not know that you're failing at something. Because inevitably, in congruence, you are failing. Just because you don't know that you're failing, that doesn't mean that you're
Doesn't
not
mean you're
failing.
not. That's
Yeah.
right. That's right. That's right. It's almost like that also introduces the idea of intentionality, when in the way you live your life, because like what you said, if you decide to just live aimlessly, then you're not being intentional about your life, your decisions, the things you're choosing every single day. But having that intentional mindset is another way to fight against that, to be intentional about every single thing, intentional about each day. Like, wake up today, I'm like, okay, what's today going to be about? Who am I going to be today? Like, I want to be a better person when I go to bed tonight than I was when I woke up this morning. What do I need to do to get there? So that's one of those intentional reasoning, intentional way of thinking that we need to approach as well to be able to achieve that aim sometimes. Yeah.
All right, great. And I find it's very fascinating. Like I said, I just want to see the viewers. I'm just saying that you wrote a book, Passion Rivers,
Yeah.
Purpose, and I wrote a book, Purpose Driven, The Meaning of Life is Found in the Purpose to Live.
Yeah.
And what we are trying to do, he's from Australia, and I'm from the Caribbean, St. Lucia to be exact. And we're trying to find if there are commonalities, you would say, between the two books, and if the idea of being driven with a purpose is something that deserves merit, or that deserves to be understood deeply.
Yeah.
So, so my next question to you is that, do you think every human being was blessed with an inherent gift, something that they love to do or something that they could do naturally?
Absolutely. There is no doubt about that. And I think that's one of my favorite topics to talk about, because when I see people, when I meet people and they feel unmotivated, or they feel like there's nothing to do, they don't feel energized. I'm like, "Ugh, the problem here is that you haven't discovered yourself yet." And I think that's what we try to skip so many times. We try to skip the process of discovering who we are, but we go after things we want. But what we don't understand is the things that we want, whatever it is that we want out of this life, is already built into who we are. So whatever it is, whatever it is you want to achieve, whatever desires you have, it's built into who you are. And who you are is what you're good at doing, the special skills you have, things you do effortlessly, things that if you work at it, like, you get really great at it. It doesn't mean you have those things and you're excellent, you're great at them, from the time you were born. Some things we still need to cultivate. But I think ultimately, the way to understand, the way to discover those things, is to spend time with yourself. Spend time understanding who you are. Spend time understanding the things that you value and the things that are. Someone put it this way: look at the things that frustrate you, um, things that you always, feel personally charged about, things that are personally important to you. For me, that is ignorance. Every time I sit in a group of people, or with a group of people, or I sit around people, or I talk to people, and I see that there's some important knowledge lacking, that really fires me up. I'm like, okay, we need to fix this. So that fires me up. So for me, I discovered that, okay, that points to something about who I am and what I'm gifted to do. I'm gifted to enlighten people, to help people process, you know, confusion and things that they may not be able to relate or understand in their lives. And in the process of doing that, you help them discover who they are, and then they can go ahead and really do the things that they're personally, gifted to do. So I do believe that's important. But first, you have to understand yourself and know who you are. And this is what I talked about in the chapter on identity in my second book. Really, I really go into it. There's nothing you can do. Your purpose and your identity, they're like inseparable. There's nothing you can do in life successfully without first knowing who you are. Because if you don't do that, you end up going after things that other people are doing. You end up copying people and try to be like people, you know, and you end up taking opportunities, taking jobs that are completely not suited for who you are. So I think that's definitely important. So yes, the answer to that question is absolutely yes. Everyone's got an inherent gift or talent or skills that they have that is unique to them, and that they only can interpret and express the way they can express it. So
Yeah, and I totally agree with that. But I,
yeah.
I got to that point by a different pathway.
Hmm.
One of the things that one of the things that I understand is that individuals, or human beings, we tend to be domesticated and conditioned in a specific way of interpreting and understanding life, and we are so held onto our we have many layers as people. We have
Mm,
our ego. We have that's the person. That's who we think we are. That's our ego. We think we that person, and how did we end up thinking we're that person? Is because of some external stimuli that we take up because we saw that there is merit in being that individual. Like that individual gets attention, but then it doesn't align with our with who we really are deep down, and then we have our personal unconscious. There are things within us that we don't fully understand yet. Like you said, you need to investigate yourself. You need to investigate what makes you feel fired up. That's in your
mm,
personal unconscious. And one of the things that I love to say when I speak about that, I love to quote Carl Jung when he said, until you can make your conscience, your conscious, your unconscious conscious, it will guide your life forever. And you're going to call it fate. There are things that make you upset. There are things that make you happy. There are things that fires you up. Why would that fire me up? Why, when I'm listening to this individual speak on a topic, it just unconsciously makes my heart race? What about this that something inside of me just attracted to? Why?
right.
You need to investigate that. You need to investigate what makes me, like you said, what makes me sad when I see
Mm,
some form of injustice. If you
yeah.
see some form of injustice when you're sad, probably if you see some injustice and it makes you sad, probably you're somebody that's attracted to justice, that's attracted to law, that's attracted to certain things like that. We need to investigate ourselves, and one of the things that we need to understand is that we need to know ourselves. We need to know who we are. Like the famous philosopher said, Socrates, know thyself. We need to first know ourselves before we go out and give ourselves off.
That's right. That's right. Super important. It is super important. And you see it a lot actually in mostly young people actually, like in youth today, like identity is one of the biggest issue crisis. It's a major crisis because everyone's looking at the internet, everyone's looking at social media, and they're trying to become like people they see. And it's just a waste because young people trying to become like people they see on social media is them sacrificing who they really are, you know. So that's very important.
Yeah, that's a good observation, and that leads, and I will ask, like, is that because they're afraid of who they are, or what is there fear playing in an act like that? I'm saying in the achievement of any goal, fear is always present. Any
Hmm.
goal that you want to achieve, fear is always present. I don't think we should be afraid to face fear. Sometimes I feel like in my own experience, I'm I'm not even really afraid of the thing. Most times I'm afraid of the fact that I might be afraid of the thing, and it, it causes it causes a ripple effect. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
my question is that is if you trying to achieve a goal and fear is always present. So
yeah.
what is your position as an individual? How do you interact with fear? How do you think how important is fear in the development of an aim or the achievement of an aim?
Oh man, like I love this may sound weird and crazy, but I love being afraid. Like I embrace being afraid because what it tells me is when I'm afraid or whenever fear is present, it tells me there's something more valuable on the other side of it. There's an experience on the other side of it that only few people will get to experience. People, and those are the people who can actually push past beyond that. So I think the problem isn't always the fact that we're afraid, but the problem is our ability to still go on despite the fear, you know, because the truth is we cannot completely avoid being afraid. We cannot completely get out of that. You're always going to have situations, you're always going to find yourself in places where you're afraid to make a decision, afraid to take a leap, afraid to to commit to something. But what we have to learn or get comfortable with is being able to move on, being able to go on rather, despite being afraid. So deep down, I'm afraid, but I'm going to do it anyway. Deep down, I'm afraid, but I'm going to sit down with myself and actually listen to my own thoughts, because some people don't want to do that because it scares you. You're like, I don't want to hear myself because I don't like what I hear. I don't want to investigate myself because I don't like what I'm going to find. But that's fear as well. Or maybe I don't want to set that goal because I'm afraid I might fail. I'm afraid I may not be confident enough or capable enough to achieve it. We have to have something more compelling than fear, and which is the outcome of the things that we want to achieve. That should compel us to go ahead without the fear. I mean, despite the fear. One example that I had, an experience that I had was uh, when I went skydiving, which is crazy. Uh, and a lot of people are like, oh man, this is crazy. It's risky and all that kind of stuff. My family was like, no, you should not do it. What's wrong with you? Why do you want to do something so dangerous? And I said, I'm afraid too. I'm afraid too. But you know what? I want to see what it's like on the other side of that. I want to see what it feels like jumping out of a plane and, being afraid, but also experiencing something that you can only experience by embracing that fear. So I guess what I'm trying to say is a lot of things in life that we want to achieve, a lot of things in life that we want to go, we want to get, or places we want to go, or we want to become, we'll never become those things if we don't fully embrace the fear that surrounds those things. It's like trying to find a treasure. You're gonna come across so many obstacles. You might have things that want to kill you. You know, might have like monsters that come out of nowhere trying to kill you, but what you're going after is more valuable, so it compels you to keep going. So I think that's the mindset we need to have about fear. We just need to know that at the end of it, the reward is always bigger and better. So
Yeah, and when I investigate fear, I spend some time thinking about it. I spend a long time thinking about
hmm,
the idea of fear. What's going on when I'm saying, when I feel that, what's going on
hmm,
when my heart beats on. And it's not only a psychological episode. It's a physiological aspect as well. My heart race, my stomach closes, my the blood don't rush to my stomach anymore because I have to rush to the other organs for me to save my. It's like I'm
yeah,
almost. It's almost like I'm trying to survive. It's almost like something in me is going to die. But I'm saying, probably if I have to go and give a talk, right? I'm saying, but I'm not going to die. Why am I? Why is my body reacting like I must save myself from a snake, or I must save myself from a tiger, or I must save myself from
yeah,
a lion or something? Is that's not, that's what is really going on. And like you said you said you enjoy being afraid. I don't enjoy it per se, but when it comes, I'm like, what is really happening? And what I understand is that it's something that's it's not that it evolves in us, but it's something that we came to, something that we use as survival, you would say, because
hmm,
back then when we were living in the jungle, we used to interact with the beast in the jungle, or used to interact with the lions, the tigers, the snakes, all those things. So we needed a system. We needed a system within our bodies so that we would be able to outrun. We would be able to 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 survive when things are coming to hunt us, because we were prey and predator at the time. But
hmm,
now we are in a civilized society. Society is now civilized. We do not have snakes running behind us. We do not have snakes in trees. We do not have lions chasing us. We don't have those things. But we still have those psychological fears. We still have bills to be paid. We still have um, interviews to go on. We still have, like,
yeah,
right now, a lot of what exists in fear exists mentally, it exists psychologically, and really and truly, part of us must die for us to overcome that fear. Because that's what happens in the developmental process as well. I don't think you can move from one stage to the next without overcoming something. You must
Mm.
overcome something. There is something, like a favorite phrase. I think it's our local phrase. Every level, there's a different devil.
That's
Every
right.
every level there is something that you must fight. You left
Mm.
secondary school, or you left high school, you were afraid of the high school exam. Now you go to college, you're afraid of
Mhm.
the college exam. You left college, you go on a job, you're afraid of the job interview. You got the job, now you're afraid of taking a mortgage to build a house. Now you're afraid of getting married. You're afraid. There's always something that you must overcome. So if you are afraid to tackle those things and to take up your responsibility, it stagnates your developmental growth. It stagnates your psychological growth. And one thing that we
Yes.
must understand is that our body grows naturally. Our body, it grows naturally. There's no stopping that. It's a force of nature. It
Yeah.
grows. But your mind, your psychological development, this is in your hands. It's your responsibility to go out in the unknown and do something that you haven't done. Put
Mm.
yourself out there. Fail. The fool is the precursor to the savior. You must go
Mm.
out and fail. You must put yourselves in situations that you don't know, and you have to try to solve those things. That builds you up. Responsibility makes a man, and
Mm.
responsibility is found in taking up the things that you are afraid of. When you were a child, you didn't do that, like the Bible said. When I was a child, I think like a child, I speak as a child. But now I become a man, I do things differently. I go out
Yep.
there. I fight those battles, like Jordan Peterson once said. Hey, you have to go to the you have to go to the dragon's lair before it comes to your village. And if it
That's
comes to
right.
your village, you're in trouble. If the dragon
Yes.
comes to your village, it's going to burn down the entire village. You need to go to its lair and kill it in the lair before it comes to the village. You need to
That's
go
right.
and look for the fear so that you
Mm.
could overcome it. And that happens within us. There's something called puritanism. It's like a grown child, like an individual, a male. He becomes 40 years old in his body, but
Mm.
his thinking is like he's still 14.
Uh, yeah.
Still 14. He's still behaving like a 14-year-old. He hasn't taken up any responsibility. He's living in his parents' basement. He's he's not doing. He's not behaving in a way that a 40-year-old man is supposed to behave. And
Mm.
why? Because he's sheltered. He's
That's
not
right. That's
the
right.
opportunity to face the fear. He's not given the opportunity to fail.
Mm. That's so true. I like that example you gave of a 40-year-old body for a 14-year-old mindset. It's so true because we see that daily, and I think it's the reason behind that is because instinctively we try to avoid discomfort, right? Anything that feels uncomfortable, we try to avoid it. But the more you get comfortable with being uncomfortable, the easier it is to face your fears, because you know that, okay, this is only temporary. That feeling only lasts for so long, and then the reward comes after. And once you are able to experience that reward, you're so excited to do it again. You want to do it again. You're like, okay, that's the way to get over it. So that's a good example. Yeah.
And and that's great. And I think that that gives you a fulfilled feeling, a
Mm.
fulfilled life. And
Yeah.
and I normally ask persons, how do you conceptualize a fulfilled life? When you say somebody's living a fulfilled life, how do you conceptualize that? How do you put that into ideas to make persons understand what a fulfilled life is?
Mm. Um, for me, a fulfilled life has two branches, to it. One branch, speaks of meaningfulness, and the other branch speaks of fulfillment. You know, the things that we do has to, we need to do it in such a way that it's not only benefiting us, something that benefits others. So a meaningful life is a life where your work, the things you do, the person you are, has a direct benefit to the people around you and people in your world. Fulfilling life, on the other hand, is the feeling that you get, the feedback that you get personally, the way you feel after doing those things or after becoming that person. So fulfillment is inward and meaning is outward. When we can achieve that balance, I think that's a fulfilled life no matter where you are. It has nothing to do with status. It has nothing to do with how much money you have. You could be a 14-year-old having a fulfilled life in that context where you're serving the people in your world as well as you're getting a significant amount of fulfillment, personal fulfillment from the work that you're doing. So to me, that's a fulfilled life. Yeah.
Yeah, and I totally agree. And I would say, uh, saying it in different words, basically, that's the same thing that you said. A
Mm.
fulfilled life is using your gifts, when you're using your gift to do something beneficial that for others, using
Yep.
your gifts that you have so that others can benefit, and you're doing that genuinely. And when persons would speak about fulfilled life, or one person would speak about even success. It has an outward, it has something outward about it. Like you must attain something, you must have a specific status, you must be driving a specific car. I'm not saying those luxurious things are not important. I think I'm going to be,
Mm.
I'm not going to be, I'm not going to have any integrity in saying that those things are not something that I wouldn't mind experiencing. That's fine. But then when you experience those things, and something is still missing. It's worse than having what having something that is greater than just experiencing the material world, because
Yeah.
the material world can never satisfy the deep materialistic hole in your soul. And no matter
Mm.
how much material you have, you're always going to have more. You're always going to want more material. But if you're doing
Yeah.
something that makes other persons happy, if you are doing things that are beneficial to others, but biblically it says living of service to others is the way that individuals become great, living of service to others. And even Maslow hierarchy of needs spoke about his unpublished work, spoke about self-transcendence. You have
Yeah.
to then actualize yourself, and then you have to transcend that. You have to give that to your give that to the world. And even Miles Monroe said, you are doing a disservice to us if you don't find your gift and give it to us. You
Yeah.
owe us your gift.
You're robbing us.
You robbing us.
That's
Let's
right.
you owe me that. Like, haven't you found that? No, you need to
Yeah.
find that and give it to me. That's mine. That's not yours. You came here with it to give it to me. You need to find it and hurry up, give it to me. You're not going to the
Yeah.
grave with that. And I'm being a little selfish. I don't want persons to go to the grave with their gifts. I don't want that. You bring it for me, please give it to me. So I'll help you
Yeah.
find it. I will help you find it. Because
That's right. I like that.
I want some from it.
Exactly. I like that. That's so important. Yeah, everyone's like we're all connected that way. I think, you have something that I need, something that you need, you have something that other people need. We need things from other people as well. So it's very important.
Yeah,
Yeah.
networking. But when I speak to persons about networking, I'm saying like, I, don't you have a network? Like you need to find a network as a human being, because
Yeah.
the way your brain operates is based on networking. Your neurons are networking. Your neurons are firing electrical impulses based on networking. If you are not networking, you will not succeed. That's fundamental. If your
That's true.
neurons are not firing electrical impulses from the external aspect to the internal aspect, there is no communication. You are built, you are built with networking. Your lungs work with your heart work with your different systems in your body. We
Yeah.
fundamentally built on networking. So we are all connected. We are all
Absolutely.
connected on a very deep plane.
Yeah. That's true. That's true. That's very true. Connection is important. Like, yeah, you have to stay connected. I think the extension to that is what you said about, everyone's got something to give. The extension to that is, what we also leave behind, which is legacy. You can say legacy, right? Because when you look at the work you do, when you look at the life you live, right, there's going to be a time when you, you cease to be, people pass away. But what happens after that? If your work doesn't outlive you, then it's not, you haven't done well. Whatever it is that you do, you have to have something that after you're gone, people should be able to point to, that you left something, and that thing continues to give and to influence and help people. And I think that's the ultimate, fulfilled life,
Yeah,
you know.
I agree. I totally, I never thought about it that far,
Mm,
but I agree. That's something for me to keep in mind. I
yeah.
totally agree. So my last question to you now is, how influential are past events in someone's life?
Wow. Yeah, that's a really good one. I think past events, they're so important. One of my favorite quotes that I've written, it says, "The story means nothing if you're not changed by the journey."
Say that
So
again.
the story means
Mhm.
nothing if you're not changed by the journey.
Expound on that.
So, we all have a story to tell. I mean, if we probably don't have enough time. If I sit you down, I'm like, tell me the story of your life. I'm sure you got stories. I've got stories to tell, but it's it's not just telling stories that's important. It's realizing how we've changed because of our stories. How has the story helped me transition from who I was to who I am now, or to who I need to be? So when you say past events, I think past events are so important because it gives us an opportunity to transition, or to look back and look at things that we need for today, that we otherwise wouldn't have been able to get if we didn't go through those things. So a good example is, like, I used to have a business. When I came out of college, I started a business, and I was super passionate. I was excited about it. I put so much money into this business, and it failed, you know and I was so upset. I was like, why did it fail? you know and looking back now, 10 years later, I'm thinking, now I know exactly why it failed. Because what the business need at the time wasn't money. What the business need was, like, effort, commitment, and ideas and people. It didn't need money at that time. So my approach was wrong. And in saying that, looking back over that, that's a story that when I tell it now, it's a story that has changed me positively. So if I go into any business right now, I have a better understanding of what I'm doing. But sometimes we tell stories that have no significance. Like, okay, so you tell the stories. How has this story improved your life? How has this story helped you change or become a better person? So that's why I said the story means nothing if you're not changed by the journey. Every time people tell me stories, or I hear people's stories, the first question I ask is, what is one thing that you can take out of that story, or one thing that you can hold on to from that story, something positive or something good? Even if it's a bad story, there's always something good in it. So that's why I think past events are very important, because they're there to point us in the direction uh, that we need to go, or point us in the direction of things we need to change, or the person we need to become more or less of. Yeah, so I think past events are very instrumental to
Yeah,
helping us achieve
and
that.
and to understand where you're going, or to understand even on nations,
Yep.
in societies, and even in culture, when you look at the history, you better understand why the culture is the way it is, why the people in the culture is the way it is. And I believe somebody's history, although um, it does not define who they are in the current moment, but it could give you a glimpse as to whether or not that person is strong, whether or not that person is wise, whether or not that person is resilient, whether or not that person is able to be persistent or have faith. That the stories, and that's what we use to uh, describe our development throughout time. Because the whole idea that we watch ourselves throughout time, right? We watch ourselves as they grow out for like a thousand years, and we catch on one behavior, and we give that behavior a character. Let's say we call that behavior Tosin. So what would that behavior signify? Um, Tosin is a behavior that a very resilient behavior. No matter what happens, he continues to stand up and try to make it happen. No matter the circumstances he's faced with, he's always going to stand up. So that comes across in stories. And I believe stories, especially past stories, especially stories that last for a very long time, that people still tell after 2,000 years, I believe those stories are very archetypical, because it's basically saying it's happening within individuals as we speak.
Yeah,
It's a form of behavior that life takes fundamentally. Life
that's
takes
right.
different, many different behaviors, many different masks, and the stories will tell you, okay, there is a high possibility, and you can use statistics to do that as well. And that's what statistics does. Like if you take 100 men, and if you're doing an experiment, you take 100 men and you're going to say there's a probability that 90% of these men will do X. And you do the investigation, you make some you keep some variables stagnant, and you see, okay, probably there's 99% that the men did X. So that means you can tell a story about that. That's something that really happens, and there's
That's right.
statistics to prove that. So an
Yep.
individual story, an individual's past story, and cultural stories, and stories that have lasted throughout time, we need to be very particular and very specific, and we need to have a lot of humility in respecting those stories, because those stories can tell you a lot about yourself, both your past, your present, and your
Yep.
future, and we have to
That's right.
respect those stories.
Absolutely. That's very good. Good way to put it. Is it shows you patterns too, you know? Story shows you pattern that and this is we talked about this earlier about, being afraid to investigate yourself. One of the things you find when you investigate yourself is you start to see patterns in your own thinking and your own decision making in life. You're like, oh, why did I, it seems I'm doing the same thing in this same situations, you it's like you're telling your own stories, but you're learning from it, and you're taking that, okay, that needs to be different, that needs to change, I need to do that differently. So I think it's a powerful tool for everyone to really leverage and really use to advance your work and your life.
Great. I really enjoy this. I really enjoy this conversation. We could stay. We
Yeah.
could. We could stay and speak the whole night. I swear.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
not
So
enough time.
I just want you to tell the viewers
Yeah.
where they could find your book, and tell them, end with something. End with a piece of advice, something about in your book. You can just end with something meaningful. We would appreciate that in the Caribbean.
Yeah, so you can find my book on Amazon. It's exclusively on Amazon. It's on my website as well, which is passionrevealspurpose.com. Or you can find Passion Reveals Purpose on Amazon. The title of the book is The Purpose Finder. And one thing I like to share, or the core message of the book, is the journey or the pathway that we all need to pay attention to achieve a purposeful life, a fulfilling life. And that's, first of all, we need to understand who we are. We need to understand what we're good at doing. Then we need to assign priorities to those things, because I think sometimes in life we fail not because we're not, it's not because we're not good enough, it's not because we don't have the skills, it's because we prioritize the wrong things. So that's important as well. And moving on from that, I think it's so important to also know the importance of adding value to others, creating meaning through our work and through our personal experiences, and ensuring that the work we do, no matter what that work is, it is fulfilling for us personally. Because it's no point trying to help people if you're dying, or if you're suffering inside. We have to strike a balance where we're giving, but also within reason, we're also taking, because we do have needs too. And I think that's something we probably need to learn to do more. And that could come in the form of rest. It could come in the form of, and a lot of people talk about self-care, 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 but self-care is a lot more than what people say. uh, so that's important as well. And I think finally the most important part of this is, after everything is said and done, I think we need to make sure that we're doing work that we can walk away from, and that work will still be going on. We need to have a legacy. We need to be able to leave something behind, something that we can entrust other people to continue, essentially. So that's like the book in a nutshell. So it takes you from discovery to achievement, discovery to implementation, to realizing, who you are and what your purpose is in life. So you can find me on social media as well. Passion Reviews Purpose everywhere, on Facebook, on Instagram. So yeah, that's me.
Well, thank you very much and good night.
I want to say thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. Thanks for the opportunity. So hopefully, uh, I would love to have you too on my podcast. So we'll do this again and we have another conversation. So
All right,
let's keep
great.
that happen.
All right, great.
Thanks,
Thank you
Kevin.
and good night.
Cheers, man.